the other thing is data management, right? We very much shied away from options-based trading because it is, when you're dealing with futures, is very linear, right? You know exactly what you're getting. You have X amount of data. You need to clean it up. You need to fix the rolls and so on and so forth. But options trading has so many levers that, you know, I imagine that cleaning up that data is 95% of yours and your developer's job. Is that, like, how do you guys manage the data infrastructure?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's sort of the running joke of like what people think you spend your time on as some fancy, you know, quant manager versus what you actually spend your time on, right? So, you know, clean, well-mapped security masters, right? But when you've got different vendors and different, you know, S&P options, but there's SPX and there's SPXW and there's ISP and there's SPY, and how are all these things related, and how does this guy treat it versus that guy treat it, and like making that totally ironclad. Yeah, that's like, it's a huge project, right? And, you know, same thing with ingesting option prices, cleaning option prices, fitting vol surfaces in a robust way, both for single names and index. So, like, you know, those are very, very large scale projects. Again, you like, it's not the first our first rodeo or anything, right? So that's a huge percent of the time historically that was, you know, spent building a lot of that stuff. Now, hopefully, once you've done a good job of that, you still have to improve it on the margin, and it still takes time, right? But like, it's not on a forward-looking basis as big of a time sink. But then, you know, you want to do futures options, and now you have a whole new project because some of it's the same and some of it's different. So that's just the nature of the beast. And by the way, it's this, I think it seems sort of obvious, but a lot of the time, you know, there's the legacy volatility and derivatives managers world, which I came from originally, right? Where, you know, what we used to do and what a lot of guys still do, right, is they trade OTC vol swaps or VAR swaps with brokers. They sit there on a Bloomberg and they have their Bloomberg chat and they have Excel, and that's kind of what they do. And we did more quantitative stuff than that, and we wrote a lot of code back in the day and everything. But like, you didn't have to worry about fixed strike options and the path dependence of fixed strike options and the complexity of the universe of fixed strike options, and you didn't have to deal with fitting vol surfaces, and you didn't really have to deal with like real-time data and all this stuff. And like, that world, you know, there was lots of interesting things to do back in the day when it was very easy to trade a vol swap in big size by quoting a dozen banks and taking down the guy who was at mid. That world is gone, right? That was a different world that existed because banks were taking huge amounts of risk and were super aggressive, and there was super profitable, you know, business with asset managers and with the broader franchise. Now we live in like a post Dodd-Frank, post Basel III world with super tight risk control, and banks just can't and won't do any of that, right? Markets are super wide. Half of the guys won't even quote the trade. The sizes are tiny, but exchange volumes are really high, right? And the world in equities especially has really migrated to lit exchanges, and there's a ton to do. That's a very hard transition to make, right? Because you've gone from having your trader, having your trader click the blast button on Bloomberg chat and blast out a dozen quote requests, stick them into the spreadsheet, find the lowest offer, lift it, check the term sheet. It wasn't, you know, there's lots of things you have to do right, but it's just a very, very different skill set, right? Versus building large technology infrastructures to be able to handle this stuff in real time, be able to manage 20,000 option line items and the dynamic risk associated with that, and the dynamic path dependence of the portfolio and its risk, and what do you have to do every day to manage the portfolio, versus like, I don't know, I have a vol swap and it's just, you know, it's gonna realize, and then I'm gonna get the realized vol, right?